Cassie and I looked at each other. She took one arm, I took the other. Somehow we hauled him down the aisle to the back of the store without anybody noticing us. But it was not easy. Eric was 100 pounds or more of concrete. Because if he'd been 100 pounds of feathers, it would have totally have been easier. After all, concrete is heavier than feathers.
It shows us all the places that we want to go and look. Superbook, Superbook.
Say hello to today's ghostwriter, Laura. Let's just assume I mispronounced that and move on. Laura was no stranger to YA fiction going into this book, writing the 10 girlfriend books under the name Nicole Gray in the early 90s, as well as a few one-shot books. Animorphs was her first attempt at science fiction action. Her genre of choice prior to this had been teen romance, so it should be to no surprise that a fair chunk of this book involves Rachel mulling over her relationship with Tobias. Namely, she gets approached during gymnastics class by a guy asking for a date, which Rachel seriously considers for a moment. After all, it would be nice to have a relationship with someone who could sit through the entire movie without having to demorph back to Hawk. However, she turns him down, partially due to her loyalty to Tobias. She more or less admits that she and him are about 5 more experience points to being an official item, but mostly because the guy's name is TT, as in the letter T twice. Either his parents named his kid after the Atari TT, or he has the douchiest nickname the 90s ever came up with. Frustrated, Rachel heads to the mall for some pity shopping and comes across Cassie shopping for her mother's birthday. Together they spot Eric King, but something's wrong. Eric's hologram keeps flickering on and off. Well, shit. The girls reach him, and Eric is freaking out. They try to take him somewhere safe, but his body begins to lock up, and they start dragging dead weight. Thankfully, Rachel is a mall genius and manages to get Eric into a Spencer's Gifts before he breaks down completely. Spencer's Gifts. Home of the wacky, wild, weird, and wonderful. Masks, X-Files memorabilia, aliens in snow globes, aliens everywhere. At least in the front half of the store. The back half of Spencer's Gifts? Yeah, if we described that, this would no longer be a young adult series. Eric's doggy robot form doesn't seem entirely out of place here, so Cassie guards him while Rachel calls Jake for help, and then goes to buy clothing to put on Eric's naked body. It's pretty interesting to see Rachel take control of the situation here. First, because she's proving herself a lot smarter than most fans give her credit for, and second, because of the whole who is the leader when Jake isn't around stuff that happens later in the series. I'll expand on that when I review number 37, The Weakness. Naturally, Cassie fares a lot worse when people start to gather around Eric and ask what he is. Cassie tries to play spokesperson, but as we all know, Cassie is a moron. Cassie was lecturing them. She was also sweating and breathing hard. Cassie is not a look-at-me kind of person. Yes, it's the latest thing from K-Tel. It's the all-new kitchen droid. It slices, it dices, it makes Julianne's fries. You mean Julian fries? The woman asked skeptically. Anyone's fries, Cassie said, her voice tinged with desperation. This kitchen droid will even ask, do you want fries with that? The crowd starts asking why the thing isn't moving, but Rachel explains it's a mock-up, and the crowd disperses. The two girls start to put clothes on Eric, which is pretty impressive. Have you ever tried putting clothes on something immobile like a statue? It's not the easiest thing in the world. The clerk gets suspicious and calls his manager, but that's when Jake and Marco shows up. Marco in gorilla morph with a sign advertising a new King Kong vs. Godzilla movie. Oh shit, is Roland Emmerich gonna piss on King Kong too? The clerk gets in the way, and Marco is forced to knock him unconscious, and the 4 Animorphs drag Eric, now dressed in designer clothes and one of Spencer's Bill Clinton masks, out of the mall with minimal fuss and find an empty bus to ride to Eric's house. So, Eric's exposed for an android, but now that he's out of the mall, nobody's around to notice? I said. Weird. Maybe it's not, Cassie said. Maybe everybody's just busy, and we're all just getting a little too paranoid, you know? Maybe. I didn't think so. My gut instincts were telling me that there was something else going on here. See, I've learned not to trust coincidences. You know what? Jake said grimly. When Marco and I got to the mall, there were electricians' trucks all over the place. I heard one of the workers say something about the surveillance cameras going dead. I didn't worry about it then. What? No video record of anything that had happened when the mall was probably crawling with controllers? When a dressing room in the Gap was one of the main entrances to the Yerk pool? Not a chance. Tobias catches up with them, and they reach Eric's house, only to discover that all the Chee are broken, their bodies locked up and their holograms shut down. They can still talk, and they inform the Animorphs that there is some kind of problem with the Chee net, the network that connects all Chee together. My guess? Blizzard is hosting the server. The only means to mess with the Chee net would be in the Pemelite ship that delivered the Pemelites and Chee to Earth thousands of years ago. The Chee hid the ship in an ocean chasm 15,000 feet below the water, impossible to get to with any morph the Animorphs presently have. There are more pressing matters, though. It seems that 2 of the Chee have frozen up in compromising places. One of them is a janitor at a nuclear research facility who managed to lock himself up in a safe before completely shutting down, but the safe is scheduled to be reopened at 10 o'clock that night. The other is posing as a homeless woman, currently trapped in a rundown building used for selling drugs and fronting stolen goods. So Eric can't give advice in stopping the Howlers, but this Chee can sit idle while the people around her push dangerous substances? Okay. She managed to hide herself in a closet before fully breaking down, but it was just so happened that the building is getting raided, and both the leader of the fencing organization and one of the SWAT team members are controllers. The Animorphs have no time to lose. Tobias flies out to get Axe while the rest of them fly to the building as fast as they can. They land outside just as the SWAT team arrives and decides to morph big, break in there and get out as fast as possible. So Jake morphs Rhino and Rachel morphs Elephant. Charles, we don't want anyone to get hurt. Come out with your hands up. Fuck off, copper! Listen, we've got your uncle here. He just wants to talk to you. Charlie, is this thing on? Charlie, it's me, Uncle Hawk. This is stupid, Charlie. Your mama's worried, I'm worried, and the car lot just ain't the same without you passing out flyers. Look, why don't you come down and we can... No fucking way. Run, Charlie! Run for your fucking life! It's that fucking elephant again! So the Animorphs bust in, and as one would expect, things turn to shit pretty quickly. Jake accidentally goes out the front of the building and gets surrounded by cop cars, but that's nothing compared to Cassie, who gets shot and paralyzed. What had Cassie morphed? A wolf. Now, I've gone over this in my head 1,000 times to try and justify Cassie morphing a bullet-vulnerable wolf in the middle of a gunfight between drug pushers and a SWAT team. Maybe they need someone to sniff out and locate the Chee? No, it's established that the Chee have no scent. If they need someone to tag the Chee's location, then surely morphing a fly or cockroach would have been a better idea, since all parties involved would be far less likely to notice one of those when an elephant, rhinoceros, and gorilla are running around. Nope, there's really no reason for it. So when Cassie gets shot and endangers the entire operation, it's empirical proof that Cassie is a moron. Marco also gets shot, but at least there's a reason for him to be in a gorilla morph. Eventually, Rachel goes to scoop up Cassie, Marco, and Chee, all made the more difficult when she gets cornered by the drug pusher controller. Thankfully, Tobias and Axe show up to save the day, Axe morphing a skunk. See, elephants, rhinos, gorillas, wolves, hawks that steal your guns from your holsters and try to shoot you with it, that's one thing. A fucking skunk? Well, that's enough to make you forget your duties and piss your pants. The Animorphs manage to escape and hide the Chee in a junkyard. So there's one Chee down, one Chee, and one broken Chee net to go. Rachel says trying to reach the Pemelite ship at the depth is suicide, since the only animals that could survive at that depth are at that depth and unreachable, but Jake shoots her down. Not because she isn't right, but because they'd never go down there if it was so obviously suicide. Then Cassie gets an idea. Looks like a wet one, Tobias said glumly. I am so totally not interested in being Captain Nemo. Hello! Cassie suddenly cried. That's it! Voyage to the bottom of the sea! Ha! I think we might have a solution. Wasn't it Journey to the bottom of the sea? Marco asked. No, it was Voyage, Jake confirmed. Journey sounds better, Marco said. Jake sighed. Hey, time marches on, right? We're in a hurry. What are you thinking, Cassie? Calamari, she said with a grin. Snails? I said, frowning. I am not in favor of snails, Axe said. Wait, that's not, Cassie said loudly. I had the misfortune to inadvertently eat one while feeding, Axe continued. I did not see it in time. I stepped on it and digested it. You ate a snail through your hoof? I asked. That picture temporarily replaced the image of me being squashed to the size of a Barbie doll on the ocean floor. Yes, and the meat portion was fine. However, once the snail's body had been digested, the shell was very difficult to... Okay, I think that's probably enough about snails, Jake said. Yeah, especially since calamari doesn't mean snail, Cassie pointed out. Escargot means snail. I was talking about... I have an idea. Let's just stick to speaking English, Tobias grumped. Squid, Cassie said suddenly. The birds in the trees around us fell silent. So did we. Until Tobias said... Calamari is octopus, not squid. Oh, who cares? Cassie cried. Squid! We can morph a giant squid. Giant squid dive really deep, and they have arms, so maybe we can get into the Pemelite ship. I met Marco's gaze. Why didn't she just say that to begin with? Could have saved us a lot of time, Marco agreed, playing along. What does any of this have to do with your Captain Nemo? Axe wondered. Cassie threw up her hands. It's a book! Journey to the... Aha! It was Journey. I mean Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Cassie grated. Captain Nemo was attacked by a giant squid. Who won? Marco asked. Wait a minute, I said. It wasn't Journey or Voyage. It was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Jules Verne. Cassie looked at me like she might strangle me. Then she said, Oh, yeah. Voyage was a TV show. They ran it on the Sci-Fi Channel. I thought it was on Nick at Night, Marco said. Animorphs, the great sci-fi epic. All of this is for naught, because giant squids are out of reach of their dolphin, shark, and humpback whale morphs. The only thing that can go deep enough and is big enough to wrestle a giant squid in submission is a sperm whale, none of which are in captivity. So yeah, going down to the ship is right out, so they need a plan to hit the nuclear research lab. But first they have to touch base with their parents or risk getting grounded. Thankfully, Rachel's mother is too far up her own ass to care. The Animorphs' antics in the mall and the abandoned building are in the news, but apparently there's no footage, and no one finds any of this animal stuff fishy. And then this story pops up. The entire town is trying to save a 59-foot whale that beached itself on the coastline less than 15 minutes ago, the anchorwoman chirped. This is the first marine mammal stranded in the town's history. Let's go live to the scene. The burrito lodged in my throat. I swallowed hard. The reporter was standing on the beach, and behind him was a massive, wrinkled wall of a whale. Rachel calls everyone, and they head for the beach. Of course, none of them are buying this. It's clear that someone is helping them out. We're being manipulated here, Jake said, but not by the Yerks. Not even they can arrange for a sperm whale to conveniently beach itself. They could shoot one, but talk a live one into beaching? Not their style. So who? Who goes to all the trouble to get to the Pemelite ship, use it to mess with the Chee, and then hand us the means to get down there? Tobias wondered. Not the Yerks, not the Elemist, not his style. So who? Wait, not the Elemist? How the fuck would you know? You guys have crossed paths with him 3 times, and each time he's both helped you in direct and indirect ways and lied to your faces. He refuses to present himself the same way twice, and now he owes you a huge favor for destroying the Howlers. The Pemelites are his creations, and the Chee are the Pemelites' creations, making them more or less the Elemist's grandkids. He is the one being you know of that has both the means and the motivation for these shenanigans, so you cannot honestly write him off so quickly.